Faith Bacon was born Frances Yvonne Bacon on July 19, 1910, and died on September 26, 1956. She was an American burlesque dancer and actress. During the height of her career, she was billed as America's most beautiful dancer, a nickname given to her by Florence Ziegfeld himself. Born in Los Angeles, California, to Francis Page Bacon Jr. and his wife Charmian, who had wed on July 10, 1909, the couple divorced several years later. Faith's father was one of 7 siblings whose parents had also divorced. Her grandfather helped establish the Page Bacon Bank of San Francisco. Her grandfather also established the Globe Iron Works of San Francisco. Supposedly Char, Cherry, or Charm Bacon, Faith's mother, would dream of a career in Hollywood, and she would accompany her daughter on tryouts where she told producers she was Faith's sister. Charmian instilled a distance from men and Faith, and by keeping men away from her daughter, some speculate Faith chose to pursue women in lesbian relationships. Charmian outlived her daughter, dying in 1972 in Denver, Colorado. Faith's father's death is unknown. In 1945, Faith and Sanford Hunt Dickinson, a Buffalo businessman, World War I veteran, and songwriter, applied for a marriage license. He had brown eyes and brown hair and a ruddy complexion. Faith was a bright-eyed blonde. Sanford was 23 years Faith's senior, and she was 35 at the time. He would die in Los Angeles in 1958, 71 years old. As Bacon was rumored to be gay, she may have sought a marriage of convenience or for financial reasons. It is unknown whether they ever actually married. They never lived together, but also never divorced. According to Tula Innes, a burlesque dancer who crossed paths with Faith frequently, Faith was a lesbian out of necessity, as her mother kept her from men. Later in life, as her work dried up, there were reports of heavy alcohol and drug use. Faith's career in burlesque began in the 1920s in Paris. Before then, she was an artist's model, much like Evelyn Nesbit, who you can learn about on this channel. In a 1930 interview, Faith stated she decided to become a dancer when she visited Paris despite never having any training. While in Paris, she met Maurice Chevalier and later premiered in his revue. During her career, she used bubbles, flowers, and fans in her nude dance routines. She spent every third step of her dances on her tiptoes, emphasizing her figure. After returning to the United States, Bacon appeared on Broadway in Earl Carroll's Vanities from August 1928 to February 1929. The program listed her performance as Fan Dance, Heart of the Daisies. She developed a gardenia dance, but had to drop it due to the price of gardenias at 10 cents each, too expensive. Her fan dances always started with her holding 3 orchids. To the newspapers, she said she wanted a man to love with a kitchen, home, and everything that comes with it. She went on to dance in Fioretta and Earl Carroll's sketchbook in 1929 and 1930, respectively. Wall Street broker Jack Stanley Morris was rumored to be her lover. In July 1930, she appeared as a principal nude in another production of Earl Carroll's Vanities. She told the press she was nearsighted and so could not really see the expressions of people seeing her nude or not. So as a mini recap, when she was 20, Faith Bacon got a job in Broadway as a chorus girl in Earl Carroll's Vanities of 1930. Carroll was a big-time Broadway producer who, in his day, gloried in the snappy nickname, the Picker of Pulchritude. He was anxious to come up with a new way of getting naked female flesh on stage as part of the show. In New York, it was legal to have nude women on stage as long as they didn't move, so shows often featured artistic tableau with an array of stationary nudes. However, that wasn't good enough for him, who found himself in a creative crisis, competing with Ziegfeld. There had to be a novel way of flashing some skin without getting arrested. At this moment, according to Faith's publicist, a Corrine stepped out of line and offered a suggestion. It was Faith, of course, taking a reckless chance to pitch her idea to the top man. "Mr. Carroll," she said, "why can't we do a number where I'm covered when I move and undraped when I stop? For example, let's say the orchestra plays a waltz. I dance around, but on every third note the music stops and I stand still and uncover." Carol was impressed and asked what she thought she could use to cover herself during the waltzing interludes. She suggested that ostrich feathers would be ideal, despite the fact that they shed, and so the fan dance was born. Faith toured America for the next few years, standing still on every third note, getting lots of ink in the gossip pages, and occasionally getting busted by the police for outraging public decency. But the busts always went down in such a way as to publicize, not shut down, her show. Years later, there was this unhappy headline: "Faith Bacon tells how she acquired the scars." In this story, Faith describes what happened during a performance at Chicago's State Lake Theater in December 1936. "I was taking a pose in the finale. The show was called Temptations, and all the girls were supposed to be temptations, temptations of man. One was power, another was wine, another was pearls, and so on. I was beauty. I was told to stand on a glass box, and the last part of the number came when they parted the curtains and showed me there in the nude. I was wearing a special spray which brings out the better points of the body, and there were lights shining on me up through the top of the glass box. Well, the curtains parted and I crashed through the box. All the girls started screaming for a doctor and running around the stage, but somehow I climbed out of all the broken glass and danced." She danced for a short while, naked and covered in blood, before collapsing. Exactly what temptation of man might the audience have assumed was being portrayed? Someone picked her up from the stage, covered her eyes, and warned her not to look down. She spent a month in the hospital and was left with deep and ugly scars on both legs. "It was 2 months before I could dance again," she said, "and I still can't toe dance. I even had to learn to walk." She continued to perform, however, but in less and less wholesome venues, eventually ending up in bars and carnivals in small towns. By 1948, Carol was dead, and things had gotten so bad that she sued a carnival boss who she claimed had tried to get her to break her contract by throwing tacks on the stage while she danced barefoot. She didn't appear in the press again until she was 47 years old. Her fan dance was an immediate hit, but Faith didn't copyright its steps, which would haunt her later. In July 1930, police raided the New Amsterdam Theater and arrested her, Earl Carroll, and other cast members for giving an indecent performance. She was appearing in a scene entitled "A Window at Merle's." Although the show underwent some changes after the raid, Bacon continued to perform the fan dance. However, Carroll stated that she should wear a chiffon arrangement during the performance and was not fully nude. In August 1930, a grand jury decided against indicting Bacon, Carroll, and her fellow cast members. Bacon herself lied to the police, saying she held onto gauzy material only. You can catch her dancing with black gauzy material in a very skimpy two-piece in the 1942 film Dance of Shame. Regardless, Bacon modified her costume after the event, sewing chiffon between the fans to keep her from being completely revealed. Following her performance in Earl Carroll's Vanities, Bacon appeared in the Ziegfeld Follies of 1931 from July to November 1931. In 1933, she went to Chicago to perform at the 1933 World's Fair, after learning that rival burlesque dancer Sally Rand was performing a fan dance too. Bacon maintained she originated the dance for Carroll in 1930 and billed herself as the original fan dancer. At the 1939 World's Fair in New York, she had an official position as fan dancer. The fan dance has been characterized as the pre-war symbol of excess. After appearing at the World's Fair in 1933, her career began to decline. Over the years, she gained a reputation for being litigious. While working in the show Temptations in the winter of 1936 at the Lake Theater, When she cut her thighs, she sued the Lake Theater Corporation for $100,000 in damages. She later settled for $5,000, which she spent on a 10-carat diamond. In October 1938, Bacon sued dancer Sally Rand for $375,000 in damages and sought an injunction barring her from performing the fan dance, which Bacon still maintained that she originated. Rand denied her accusations, claiming jealousy. Rand stated, "The fan idea is as old as Cleopatra. She can't sue me for that." Faith responded, "I'm an artist, and she, Sally Rand, is a businesswoman. My dance was one of ethereal beauty. It really was. And that woman turned it into an animated French postcard. Of course, the fan dance should include nothing but the fans. When I do it, I wear only talcum powder. That woman dances the fan dance with high heels. Bacon does it in bare feet. Imagine, all she does is walk around and let people gawk. It breaks my heart to see my art treated like that. I do not dance in complete nude, as the police censor said. I wouldn't unless I knew everyone in the audience was an artist who would see only the aesthetic beauties of such dance," Bacon said in court after the New Amsterdam Theater raid in 1930. In 1937, Bacon was in the press again, saying, "Fan dancing, I hate it. I have always wanted to be an obstetrician. I love babies." In 1938, Bacon made her only Hollywood film appearance in Prison Train, directed by Gordon Wiles, in which she plays the role of Maxine. The movie ends in a shot with her in black lingerie, stepping off of a stage to speak to the actress Dorothy Comingore, who would play Orson Welles' washed-up actress wife in Citizen Kane. On April 23, 1939, Bacon was arrested for a second time for disorderly conduct after staging a publicity stunt on Park Avenue in New York City. Bacon was scheduled to do a fawn dance at the 1939 New York World's Fair the following week, dressed in wisps of chiffon and maple leaves while walking a fawn on a leash. She was released on a $500 bond, potentially paid for by her wealthy family. A review of her dance at the time stated, "Faith Bacon parades through a moth-eaten fan dance that has lost its punch long ago." Bacon appeared on film in 1942 in two short recordings, Lady with the Fans and Dance of Shame. Her makeup looks very much caked on in these films, perhaps a trick she used to hide the scars on her legs. The way that she modified her eyebrows also makes her seem pathetic. Throughout the 1940s, Bacon continued to perform her act at clubs and venues, but we also see her in private striptease photos during this decade. In 1948, she was hired to headline a girl revue. However, on the last day of the performance, she claimed she was owed over $5,000 in back salary. She claimed the owner tried to terrorize her and sued the carnival promoter for $55,444, accusing him of putting tax on the stage on which she was dancing barefoot, forcing her to break her contract. Bacon lost this case. By the mid-1950s, she attempted to start a dance school in Indiana, but that failed, and she was found unconscious after reportedly overdosing on sleeping pills. After that, she was unable to secure employment and ran out of money. Elaine Stewart, a dancer who previously worked with Bacon, was with her husband when she recognized Bacon in an alley as the couple were leaving through a stage door at a theater in Seattle, Washington. In Burlesque, Legendary Stars of the Stage, Elaine's husband, Lee Stewart, described the encounter. "We came out the stage door of the Rivoli Theater in Seattle after the midnight show. Off to one side in the alley, in the shadows, stood what we would now call a bag lady. We started past her when my wife pulled up short and said, 'My God, Faith?' Needless to say, it was Faith Bacon. She was down on her luck and needed a handout. My wife gave her some money and talked with her a few minutes, but she seemed to be in a hurry. She shuffled away after promising to drop backstage the next day to visit. We never saw her again." By 1956, Bacon was living in Erie, Pennsylvania, but decided to travel to Chicago, where she once stunned in the World's Fair decades before, to find work. Upon arriving, she checked into a hotel and spent 3 weeks looking for work, but could not find any. On September 26, 1956, Bacon jumped out of her window at the Allen Hotel at 2004 Lincoln Park West in Chicago, falling 2 stories before landing on the roof of an adjacent building. Stories differ as to whether she was walking up the stairs and opened a window or whether she was in her apartment. Bacon's roommate, grocery store clerk Ruth Bishop, tried to intervene by grabbing Bacon's skirt as she climbed out of the window, but Bacon tore free of her grasp. She suffered a fractured skull, perforated lung, and internal injuries. She died of her injuries at Grant Hospital later that night. Roommate Bishop later said that Bacon appeared to be depressed before her death. Bishop stated she wanted to get back into the spotlight. She would have taken any work in showbiz. At the time of her death, Bacon had no money and was estranged from her husband, songwriter Sanford Hunt Dickinson. The inventory of her possessions included clothing, one white metal ring, a train ticket to Erie, Pennsylvania, and 85 cents. The American Guild of Variety Artists claimed her body and arranged for burial. She was buried in Wunders Cemetery in Chicago. I wonder if the detectives got it wrong and her train ticket was actually for Erie, New York. If so, this was the area of her husband's birth, and perhaps she could have been trying to get back to him at the time of her death. Or she could have been trying to get back to Erie, Pennsylvania, where she had once lived. Bacon's life is a cautionary tale. She did not seem to move on from her Ziegfeld days or learn new skills. She did not settle down in one place and moved across the country, depleting her funds. She undressed with almost no thought as to how it would affect her tomorrow.